My name is Louise Richardson-Self, and I'm a lecturer at the University of Tasmania in both philosophy and gender studies. I was in college, year 11, and the school that I went to was offering a class in philosophy, which I had never heard of before, but I read the little description and I thought, this sounds interesting. I'm going to do that. And I fell in love instantly. Back then, the main questions that we were talking about were things like the problem of evil, what is justice, how much power should government have over its citizens? So really like interesting thought puzzles that activate your mind and make you just want to talk and talk and talk until you can figure it out. And so I was thrilled to be able to go to university and major in philosophy. And it was when I started my undergrad degree that I was also introduced to gender studies. And through a beautiful melding of disciplines, I ended up finding my niche in feminist philosophy, but it still always retained that kind of political, social, ethical framework. For me, the best philosophy is applied philosophy. It's philosophy that, isn't just done in the armchair, but can be taken to the streets and can be written into policies and can influence the development of legislature and so on and so forth. Like, I really think the possibilities for philosophy are endless. All you need is a little bit of creativity to figure out where it fits in your life. So I also have struggled to define myself as a philosopher because I've never fit neatly into the pre-existing subdisciplines of philosophy. Like, do I work in ethics? Do I work in legal philosophy? What is feminist philosophy when it is not faithful to any subdisciplinary boundaries? So it took me a while to figure out that I am a social philosopher. And part of that has come with the development of, things like social epistemology, this flexible space sort of between the political and the ethical. And I've just figured out that, what I care about is doing philosophy that changes the world. And that's social philosophy, right? It's the philosophy that makes our everyday existence better, more meaningful, more interesting. At the moment, I'm trying to write an article. I'm trying to collaborate to write an article about Grace Tame and the impact of her advocacy, and simultaneously how she's been both platformed and silenced by various Australian institutions, including the media. So I think that's really important to kind of bring to public knowledge the recognition that just because you have a platform doesn't mean you get listened to. And so what is it about Grace Tame as a case study that's enabled some changes, but has also really brought to the fore these stalwart problems of misogyny and sexism? So where am I going next after I finish this article? I'm not entirely sure. I'm starting to become very interested in narrative identity. And so understanding how the stories that we tell create our sense of self, who we are, what makes our lives meaningful, who matters to us, what I fight for, what I disregard. So that, I think, follows nicely from some of the work that I've already been doing on social imaginaries, where I've been investigating the collective images that we share that make our lives meaningful. And now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how does the individual place themselves in relation to those dominant social narratives, the normative expectations on behavior, particularly when they are gendered or raced, whether they're about being able-bodied or disabled, and how you make sense of yourself in literal space. So I'm kind of at the beginnings of a journey into narrative identity, and part of it is inspired by my own life, of course. I think all of my philosophy has been a little bit inspired by my own life, but I am struggling to make sense of myself as a person that lives with chronic pain. So that's, I think, where I'm going to take my philosophy next, just to try to figure some stuff out for myself and hopefully figure out some stuff that actually is useful for other people along the way. I think that all of us are born into worlds that already have social imaginaries affecting people's lives, right? We're not born onto blank slates. We are not born as blank slates, because from the moment we enter the world, images, narratives, and expectations are being thrust upon us. And as we get older, I think, and start to develop a sense of self, we are in a constant negotiation with how we feel, what our parents say, what our siblings are like, what school we go to, as well as what we see on TV or read about in a book. So all of these things are having a constant pressure. Maybe pressure is not the right word, because it implies, you know, something onerous or unbearable, but it presses upon us conceptions which we then either take up uncritically or we think about really deeply, and we weave them into an explicit narrative about who we are. So I think we've got this looping process where lots of people are sometimes consciously, sometimes pre-consciously repeating social images in a very broad sense, shared narratives, the actual literal look of our bodies in the world, what we aspire to be, the posters we put up on our walls. All of these things are happening kind of simultaneously, right? So it sort of explains in my mind how you can get kind of waves, you know, almost like styles, genres, you know, little evolutions in how our society looks, feels, acts. So I think definitely there's some sort of like synthesis between the two. It's not clear exactly how much control a person could have over their narrative, because there will be some elements of society that just can't be extracted from you as the agent. But still, I think the reason we are individuals, the reason we're able to be individuals, is probably because we all make slightly different meaning out of the things we encounter, the bodies we have, the people we're attracted to, the aesthetics that are, you know, sort of promoted, and those which are seen as kind of subcultural, a bit left field. I think all of these things are ongoing all the time. So there's this weird sense in which like social images create the conditions for us to be individuals, but they also create the conditions for us to be just like so many other people. The advice that I would give to my younger self, I think, hasn't changed from what I was telling myself back when I was a university student, or even, you know, when I was in year 11 and year 12 discovering philosophy for the first time and actually feeling passionate about learning for the first time. And that advice is have fun and say yes. All of my best, most exciting opportunities have come about in precisely that way. Not because I had these heavy expectations, and I know the career that I have is a career that many people really want to have. And I guess I had to be okay with knowing that it might not work out, but along the way, say yes, have fun. And it did work out. So maybe that is advice that other people would actually find helpful too.